Today is Friday, April 12th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report, International News. Please like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss any of the latest news. Mexico's president says his country wants the United Nations to suspend Ecuador from the world body as part of a complaint to the top UN court over Ecuador's police raid last week on the Mexican embassy in Quito. Tensions between Mexico and Ecuador have soared since late last week when Ecuadorian authorities forced their way into the diplomatic mission to arrest Ecuador's former Vice President Jorge Glas, who had been holed up there seeking asylum in Mexico. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says his country has filed a complaint at the International Court of Justice in the Netherlands, asking the UN to suspend Ecuador because of the raid. Israel's military says it is prepared to defend the country and strike back if Iran decides to retaliate for this month's deadly airstrike on the Iranian Consulate in Syria. Tehran holds Israel responsible for the attack, which the U.S. military believes Israel carried out. Israel has not commented on it. The increased tensions have sparked concern that Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza could spill over into the rest of the Middle East. The war has pushed Gaza into a humanitarian crisis, leaving more than 1 million people on the brink of starvation. The head of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Samantha Power, told lawmakers this week she accepted credible reports that famine is occurring in hard-hit northern Gaza. A U.S. carrier strike group, led by the USS Theodore Roosevelt, held a 3-day joint exercise with its allies, Japan and South Korea, as U.S. President Joe Biden pledged an ironclad defense commitment to leaders from Japan and the Philippines at the White House. The nations are ramping up cooperation amid China's aggressive military actions in the region. The latest naval exercise is also part of Biden's security and diplomatic engagement with Indo-Pacific nations. A Chinese Defense Ministry spokesperson said Friday that China's activities are justified, lawful, and beyond reproach, and accused the U.S. of flexing its muscles in the region and building up anti-China cliques. Ukraine's parliament has passed a controversial law on how the country will call up new soldiers at a time when it needs to replenish depleted forces that are increasingly struggling to fend off Russia's advance. The law was passed on Thursday against a backdrop of an escalating Russian campaign that has devastated Ukraine's energy infrastructure in recent weeks. Authorities said that overnight, missile and drone attacks completely destroyed the Trypilska thermal power plant. It was the largest power-generating facility in the region of the country's capital. 2 years after Russia's full-scale invasion captured nearly a quarter of Ukraine, the stakes could not be higher for Kyiv. Ukraine's forces are now dug in, outgunned, and outnumbered. A Haitian human rights group has released a new report that details the horrific violence unleashed this year by gangs who kill, rape, and maim with impunity amid a political vacuum. Among the victims is a photographer slain in a drive-by shooting, an 80-year-old patient executed in a hospital surgery room, and a couple decapitated as they closed their small store. The group seeks to hold those responsible accountable and it relies on people on the ground to collect victims' names, ages, and occupations to ensure they don't remain anonymous amid a surge in slayings that are difficult to track. The report was released Wednesday. A Vietnam court has sentenced real estate tycoon Truong My Lan to death in the country's largest financial fraud case. The 67-year-old chair of real estate company Van Thin Phat was accused of fraud amounting to $12.5 billion, nearly 3% of the country's 2022 GDP. She illegally controlled the Saigon Joint Stock Commercial Bank between 2012 to 2022, siphoning off funds through thousands of ghost companies and bribes to government officials. State media Ven Express reported Lan allowed 2,500 loans that resulted in losses of $27 billion to the bank and must compensate SCB. The so-called Blazing Furnace campaign has touched the highest echelons of Vietnamese politics. Last month, former President Vo Van Thuong resigned after being implicated in the campaign. Experts say messages by two influential Taliban leaders in Afghanistan this week showed tensions between hardliners and more moderate elements who want to scrap harsher policies and attract more outside support. One message for Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of Ramadan, was delivered by Supreme Leader Hibatullah Akhundzada, who defended the imposition of Islamic law and railed against the international community for its criticism. The other came from Interior Minister Sirajuddin Haqqani, who called on the Taliban to be humble and avoid behaving in ways that make Afghans unhappy. Cambodia's program to relocate people living on the famous Angkor archaeological site is drawing international concern over possible human rights abuses, while authorities maintain they're doing nothing more than protecting the UNESCO World Heritage Site from illegal squatters. Caught in between are the thousands of families who have been moved from their homes to a new settlement called Runta Ek, where many say they are struggling to survive. Some 5,000 families have already been relocated, and Cambodia expects to move another 5,000. UNESCO says it never asked for any families to be moved and is stressing the importance of full respect for human rights. With a population of over 1.4 billion people and close to 970 million voters, India's general election pits Prime Minister Narendra Modi, an avowed Hindu nationalist, against a broad alliance of opposition parties that are struggling to play catch-up. The 73-year-old Modi first swept to power in 2014 on promises of economic development, presenting himself as an outsider cracking down on corruption. Since then, he has fused religion with politics in a formula that has attracted wide support from the country's majority Hindu population. India under Modi is a rising global power, but his rule has also been marked by rising unemployment, attacks by Hindu nationalists against minorities, particularly Muslims, and a shrinking space for dissent and free media. U.S. Treasury wants to enhance the power of a little-known, secretive government committee to review deals made between U.S. firms and foreign investors. A new proposed rulemaking would strengthen powers for the Interagency Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, known as CFI-IUS. which is tasked with investigating corporate deals for national security concerns and holds power to force the company to change. This comes as high-profile deals involving foreign investment in the U.S. Like Chinese firm ByteDance's social media app, TikTok, and Japanese firm Nippon Steel's bid to purchase Pittsburgh-based U.S. Steel Corp. have received increased scrutiny by lawmakers and even President Joe Biden. Thank you for joining us here at the Dunkley Report International News. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the latest breaking stories.